told that we're facing a 100-year war that will last generation after generation. In this film, we will explore who pulls the strings and who benefits from the dark spectacle of modern warfare. We will answer the question, do the people know how they are controlled? Do they understand the systems of power that surround them? The modern propaganda machines of public relations that wash their brains and fill their minds full of ball games and mindless fluff. Is the population beginning to realize that governments throughout history have used the specter of fear to drive their populations into acquiescing to total tyranny? September 11th, national ID cards, Big Brother, the Iraq War, the 7/7 bombings in London, the invasion of Iran. How are they all interconnected? In previous films, we have focused predominantly on September 11th as the foundational event, the pretext for the current geopolitical structure.
The smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
National polls show that most Americans and Westerners believe the official story of 9/11 to be a fraud. And a large part of that majority believes that 9/11 was an inside job. But the establishment press continues to contest any alternative view concerning 9/11. In this documentary, we will first look at historical events that are not contested, events where the fact of government-sponsored terror is not debated, but in fact openly admitted to by Western governments. There are literally hundreds of examples of government-sponsored terrorism in modern history, or what are known as false flag operations. We're going to start by looking at just 5 past examples, then we'll look at several modern cases. What is a false flag? The encyclopedia definition reads, false flag operations are covert operations conducted by governments, corporations, or by other organizations which are designed to appear as if they were carried out by other entities. The name is derived from the military concept of flying false colors, that is, flying the flag of a country other than your own.
I used to be in charge of the visa section at the CIA's consulate at Jeddah, the principal city of the Hejaz in western Saudi Arabia. There, for a year and a half, I issued visas to terrorists recruited by the CIA and its asset, Osama bin Laden.
The FBI became a recent believer in doing that. Wright was urging them to proceed criminally against these organizations. They did not do so until Judicial Watch and others raised a public outcry as to why Islamic money laundering in the United States was not being dealt with. This is a new phenomenon. And part of the reason for this phenomenon, I believe, as chairman of General Counsel of Judicial Watch, is because these monies were going through some very powerful U.S. banks with some very powerful interests in the United States. These banks knew or had reason to know that these monies were laundered by terrorists. And there are very significant potential conflicts of interest in both the Clinton and Bush administration with the country primarily responsible for funding these charities, namely Saudi Arabia. We have both Clinton and Bush, and in particular this Bush administration, who is as tight with Saudi Arabia as you can get. The President's father used to stay with the bin Laden family when he would go to Saudi Arabia. So I don't know. I don't know what the exact answer is, but that may help explain why the why the FBI agents were nervous about getting into this stuff when the rich and powerful of Washington, D.C. are in fact doing business with some of these entities.
It was essentially the same deal George W. Bush himself made when he did business with the bin Ladens in Houston. One side got a powerful partner, the other, oil and money. Former CIA agent Robert Baer.
The United States depends upon Saudi Arabia for its oil production. Saudi Arabia also recycles all the money it makes off oil in the United States and puts trillions of dollars in our banks. It pays for presidential libraries, anything you can imagine.
And the Clinton White House wasn't immune to Saudi charm either. It was difficult not to give the benefit of the doubt to the biggest buyer of American military hardware with the deepest pockets in the stock market, not to mention the world's largest oil reserves. Which is why after George Bush Sr. left office and became a senior advisor to the powerful international investment firm, the Carlyle Group, he paid a number of visits on their behalf to his good friends, the Saudi royal family and the bin Ladens.
This is a very nice reunion with friends. I'm very pleased to be here.
They soon became Carlyle clients. Incredibly, on September 11th, Bush and the head of the bin Laden family would be at the same Carlyle Group meeting in Washington, just a few miles from where Osama bin Laden's hijackers would attack the Pentagon.
Now we return to the Fifth Estate.
Think of it as a conspiracy theory true or false test. A. When George W. Bush started his first oil company, who helped fund it? Osama bin Laden's brother and brother-in-law. True or false? B. After a terrorist bomb at a barracks in Saudi Arabia killed 19 Americans, who got the multi-million-dollar contract to rebuild? The bin Ladens. True or false? C. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, who was in a meeting at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Washington? George Bush Sr. and Osama bin Laden's brother. True or false? Actually, the answer could be D, all of the above. Because believe it or not, as far-fetched as they sound, each and every one of those things, the bin Laden link to the Bush Oil Company, the bin Laden construction contract after the terrorist bomb, and the bin Laden-Bush meeting on 9/11, is true.
Keeping this information in mind, it should be easy to understand how and why the United States would create an Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset. He was trained by and funded by the CIA. He was put into power by the CIA, and he had substantial financial ties to the current administration. Saddam Hussein was also supported by the United States government. He was given agricultural credits, which he then used to purchase illegal chemical and biological weapons, according to Senator Donald Riegel's report. Question: is it not outside the realm of possibilities that the United States would create a boogeyman, create an Osama bin Laden or a Taliban or an Al-Qaeda on which they could place the blame of the events of September 11th and other yet-to-occur terrorist acts?
We've toppled governments, we've done coups d'etats, we've used intelligence services for covert purposes and done horrible things around the world, and we have put up with the most heinous human rights abusing countries. We have propped them up. We've even trained them how to commit human rights abuses. Today's demon was yesterday's friend, all in the name of either the Cold War or for commercial reasons.
We condemn anti-communist regimes in Africa and Latin America, allegedly for violations of human rights. But we invite to the White House and then publicly embrace every communist dictator in the world, no matter how bloody his hands.
Key provisions of the Patriot Act are set to expire next year. The terrorist threat will not expire on that schedule.
And as Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. After 18 months, our troops will begin to come home. These are the resources that we need to seize the initiative while building the Afghan capacity that can allow for a responsible transition of our forces out of Afghanistan. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome His Majesty King Abdullah to the White House, and I am very pleased to be able to return the extraordinary hospitality that he showed me and my delegation when we visited Saudi Arabia and when we visited His Majesty's farm.
مرحبا للجميع وأرحب بصاحب الجلالة خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك عبد الله إلى البيت الأبيض، ويسعدني بأن أبادله الضيافة الرائعة التي قدمها لي وللوفد المرافق لي عندما زرت المملكة العربية السعودية وزرته في مزرعته هناك.
Since that historic meeting that took place 65 years ago between Franklin Delano Roosevelt and His Majesty's fathers, King Abdulaziz, we have had a strong and strategic relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia.
منذ 65 عاما وهذا اللقاء التاريخي الذي تم آنذاك بين الرئيس فرانكلين روزفلت ووالد صاحب الجلالة الملك عبد العزيز، لقد كانت العلاقات بين البلدين العلاقات الثنائية وطيدة وقوية.
I always value His Majesty's wisdom and insights, and we have had a very productive session speaking about a whole range of issues that relate to both relations between our two countries, but also issues of prosperity and security around the globe.
The terrorist threat will not expire, will not expire, will not expire.
Terror. War on terrorism, war against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism, global terrorism, global terrorism. Global terrorism, global terrorism, global terrorism, global terrorism. Global terrorism. Terrorism, 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 terrorism. Terrorism, 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 terrorism. The evil terrorists. Terrorists, 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 terrorists.